Nikiyut, chapter 11. So we spoke about how people rationalize and they permit themselves to do a little bit of shady business when it comes to money, because money has a very strong attachment to our heart and our desires. So that's why the Gemara says, Rubam Bagaza. Most people fall into the trap of stealing without realizing it. All right, and we have to, this chapter, Mesalat Yesharim, tells us how a person has to be careful not to be misguided and to be biased towards himself in regards to business. But now we're going to move on to immorality. Gilui Arayot. So he says, Naber Ata Mina Arayot. We'll talk about the sin of illicit relations, right? Someone who wants to be considered chiste, right? Chiste heart, he has to understand that it's he has to stay away. Lo tikrevu legalot ervata. It's not just not to do immorality; it's not even to come close to immorality, right? Like Gemara Masechet Bava Batra famously said, the guy who says there's two paths, and one of them passed by the ladies doing the laundry in the river, and he says, "Oh, that way is shorter. I'll go that way, and I won't look. I'll be a bigger tzaddik. I'll go next to it, and I still won't look." He says, the Gemara says, he's Rasha. He's Rasha. Where a person has to pray, he should never be brought to a test. Who are we to say that we're stronger than the Yisara, we can beat him? Who is it? There's no there's no guarantor. There's no guarantee when it comes to these things. So therefore, a person has to avoid these things. From here, the post can learn from this Gemara. Many of the halachic authorities write that a person has to have a filter. How can you go on the internet and use your phone and have all these things without a filter? At least the iPhone has a built-in filter onto the phone. There's a way to, set a passcode with somebody else, and then that way you can access inappropriate things. And the person who says, "No, I'll use my phone. I'll go down the path, and I won't look at anything. I'll be a bigger tzaddik," he's a rasha. He should know that he's telling you falsehoods, that he's getting fed from the Yesara, and he's not being naki. This is the opposite of being clean. Clean means I have no biased thinking and I have no misguiding from the Yesara, and this is exactly what he's talking about. A person has to be unbiased, he has to be truthful, and he has to call a spade a spade. And he says, right, there's many different levels of immorality. A person has to know the actual act, right, of intimacy. Then there's the young men, while they're dating, they have to be careful not to keep the laws of shomer, right? Not just because you're dating this girl doesn't mean you're allowed to hug and kiss. The person has to stay away from that. It's totally asur. You're not allowed to do yuhud, not even seclusion. And you're being alone with her in a room for more than 3 minutes, or you're on some side street, parked in the car after your date till who knows, till 12 o'clock at night, schmoozing. There's nobody passing by. That's yuhud. Yuhud is seclusion. It's asur. And even if you did nothing, but we didn't do anything, we just schmoozed, that itself is a sur. Just the isur of yehud is a separate prohibition in the Torah. So therefore, a person has to avoid that. Beriyah, and with his sight, where he looks. So a person that goes to a wedding, he has to be careful not to fall into the trap of trying to do a mitzvah, but then looking at all these ladies that he's not supposed to be looking at, whether it's bedibur, speech, who he speaks to. Right, there's a big yitzhara for young guys when they go on these Shabbat walks and they go and they hang out with all these girls. People even in seminary in Israel, yeshiva in Israel, they could fall into the bad custom of walking around hanging out with the boys and girls. Oh, we don't do anything, we just hang out. Or I tell the guy, "What are you doing hanging out with all these girls?" "Oh, she's my cousin. She's my cousin." He has 50 cousins. One cousin, and then she brings all her friends. It's my cousin. It's my cousin. And then he allows himself and he gives himself permission to go and speak to these girls, and one thing leads to the other. And so the way the Yesara tells you, today do a little bit, tomorrow do a little bit more, and then the end he makes you do avodah zarah, the Gemara says. So if a person has to not play this game, and b'shmi'ah, by listening to immorality, how do you listen to immorality? Ladies singing, music, the Z100 today, all these songs, catchy songs, and it's Kol Isha. Kol Isha is also immorality, right? Or a voice of a woman you're not allowed to listen to. I feel the machshava. How much more so thoughts, clean thoughts. The Shulchan Aruch says a person who has dirty thoughts, he's not allowed to wear tefillin. You have to have clean thoughts when you're wearing tefillin. How much more so during the day? And a person has to make sure that what you see and what you think is where you're probably going to be. So a person has to be careful to guard himself from all those things. Medraga shlishit, achar hakezav ha'arayot, לעניין החמדה, הוא איסור מאכלות. And he says, and then after this, there's a big problem of a person who rationalizes and a person very easily falls into saying, Yalla, no, come on, is by food, by forbidden food. Where he says to the guy, says, listen, the rabbi tells him, listen, yes, it says the kashrut sign over there, it has a hechsher, but that's for not our standards, that's for Ashkenazim. He says, Rabbi, if it's good for Ashkenazi, it's good for me. Ivrei, Jew is a Jew. What does it matter? I'm gonna go. And the person has to know that. Why does he say that? He knows that you have to eat Bet Yosef. He knows he has to eat Kemach Hashan. But why is he trying to finagle the situation? It's because he has a desire. He wants to eat. You're telling me I have to get up, leave the restaurant, go eat somewhere else. I can't eat this food. Oh, but my friends are here, my family are. Niodobna. The guy's gonna tell me you're not gonna eat from me. What happened? What? I'm not. It's Rabbi, don't worry. It's super glad kosher, right? So all these situations is very heavy on a person. It's very difficult not to, to just get up and say, I'm sorry. It is what it is. No, a lot of times people say, listen, it's a mitzvah to make the guy happy. Listen, if it's good for Ashkenazim, it's good for me. A guy has a desire for a steak, but there's no Bet Yosef steaks anywhere nearby, and he wants to go to steakhouse. He says, listen, Rabbi, I can't, I need to, I want to go, it's kosher at the end of the day, what's the big deal? And therefore, he falls and he says, this is where a person has to be very careful. How much more so? Because this one is the most spiritually defiling. As it says in Sechet Yoma, v'nitmetem bam, al tikri v'nitmetem, elam nitamtem. It says, don't read it that you'll become impure, rather read it, you'll become blocked up. Many times, you'll speak to certain people, and it just doesn't go. They just don't want to learn. They don't want to pray. They don't want to change. It's like talking to a brick wall, and you're like, I can't get through to this guy. What is it? He has a big klipa, shell on him. And it's the Gemara Sechet Yoma says, it's from most likely the non-kosher foods that he ate. These spiritually, you are what you eat. And Hashem says that these foods have holiness and holy sparks, and you uplift and they bring you closer to me. And these foods that are not allowed, they bring you away from me. And they take you more to the klipa and attach a layer of shell around you, impervious to holiness. So therefore, the Tversky writes over here, he says, he quotes the Rambam. The Rambam writes in a letter to some philosophers that he was arguing with, he says, from your arguments, I know that you ate from non-kosher animals' meat. From the way you're talking, it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. And what I proved to you, I showed you why you're wrong, and you're still not agreeing with me. I know you ate something not kosher. Then that's already, you have no logic, you have spiritually blockage. Your neshama is supposed to understand and go. You tell a guy a big story, usually people get a chizuk, and people say, wow, I make teshuvah. The big reason, a lot of Kiruv organizations make Shabbaton, Sof Shavua, a lot of people chozer b'teshuvah. But why? There's a lot of shiurim and lectures they do during the week. It's because they finally ate kosher food on Shabbat. The whole Shabbat they had catered food, kosher food, and right away the Torah went inside. But if you don't, you make excuses, then not just do you fall and not being a naki, not being cleaning your heart, you're also going to be stopped up, blocked up, and then vapshe, nothing will go inside. Baruch Adonai Olam, amen, amen.